You fat, ugly, good for nothing, useless, worthless whore. Those are the kinds of names that I had to listen to pretty much the whole time that I was married to my narcissistic ex-husband. Oh man, the names, the words, they were so evil, beyond evil. And I just remember, how venomous even just the word worthless was. Fat meant nothing. Yeah, ugly meant nothing but worthless. He just he just pushed it into my soul how worthless I was. And now, 10 years later, I see that it is just projection, that they feel worthless themselves. And so they have to make you feel their pain. But at the time, when you don't understand narcissism, you just get bullied within an inch of your life. I mean, the name calling was one thing, but it's just all of the things. It's the gaslighting, it's the how they can never be wrong about anything and you can never be right about anything. How if you want them to, agree with something, you've got to make them think it was their idea because they're the only ones who can have good ideas. It's the walking on eggshells whenever they walk into the room. It's the panic, the feelings of panic if there's any mess anywhere, or if you've done, something that's not quite up to their standard, if you haven't cleaned properly, if you haven't hung the washing properly, if you forgot to buy the Bundabergs at the supermarket, all of the things that make you useless and pathetic and worthless. It was just like walking on eggshells constantly and constantly wondering what you were going to do wrong next. Narcissists are just completely devoid of emotion. They're non-human. And because they're non-human, they can just torture you so incessantly because it's almost like they've got no way to measure what's going overboard. They just have no feelings. They're missing some kind of microchip in their brain that makes them like understand empathy. They have none. They have no empathy. The only pain that they can feel is their own. So if they could hurt you to the millionth degree, they could do the most hideous and horrible acts towards you, but they would still only feel their small bit of pain, and it'll feel like a million times worse to them. It's just the craziest thing. Narcissists are just, they're like the devil. And when I was in my narcissistic relationship, it was like hell on earth. You know, the husband would leave and then return and then leave and take all the money and the income and then return and leave again, and then you'd be all financially broken, and then they'd return to save the day and then return to tell you how pathetic you are with money, even though, you're at home with all these kids trying to make ends meet. And they just like to be the ones to come and save the day, but they also were the ones who would destroy the day as well. Narcissists are just completely empty and lifeless. They just have no emotion, no emotion whatsoever. So yeah, like I said, just endless amounts of torture. And I know that that it stems usually from their childhood, because no, I don't think any child is born um, essentially evil, but something happens to them in their childhood, whether they're deprived of love, whether they're deprived of um, emotion, something happens where they just switch off and then they just become like robots, and everything is biological for them. Everything's biological. Um, but in all of my own personal childhood trauma and the trauma that I have lived through during my lifetime, nothing, and I mean nothing, absolutely nothing compares to the abuse and the trauma that I lived through with my ex-husband. You know, um, uh, and it's such a big thing to say because I have been through a whole lot of my life, and it's like, why people are like, why did you go back to him then? Why did you keep having him back? It's because of the trauma bond. It's like they punch a hole straight through your heart and their hand expands and you can't get away from them. You want to, you don't want to be stuck in this pain. You know that it's painful, but there's this bond, there's this thing that keeps you together, and it is a trauma bond. And it takes so many years to heal from that. And you don't love them, and they certainly don't love you, and you don't want to be with them, and you are repulsed by them, but you can't get away from them. It feels like a demonic force field that holds you together. So anybody who's stuck in a narcissistic relationship right now, I understand completely how hard it is to get away from these people. And really, for me, if my sister hadn't have moved close by to me at the time that she did, I might have still been stuck with him. And actually, I don't even know if I would have been alive. I remember sitting there, one particular night, but many, many nights of doing this. But I remember sitting there just looking at my wrists, just looking backwards and forwards at my wrists, and I knew that was like I was at my lowest low. It was only my children that kept me alive. So, you know, if I could turn back time and go back to having never, ever, ever met him, I would love, I would love to be able to do that. But the weirdest thing is that, it was the pain, it was the torture, it was the horrific abuse, the emotional abuse that he put me through. That is the reason that 30 Plus and Fabulous exists. This group would never have even been a thing if I hadn't have been, if I didn't have to deep dive into trauma, if I didn't have to go through so much hell and never want another woman to go through the hell that I went through. 30 Plus actually was opened as a marketing exercise. So while I was with my ex-husband, and one of the times that he left, I was like, I wanted to study or train to do something that would make women feel happy, because I was so sad. And I just thought I wanted, it was like a projection thing, making people happy. I would have loved it if, somebody could have come along and saved me from my situation. And I was just so sad, and I thought I wanted to do a job that made women feel happy. So I trained to be a makeup artist, and I wasn't the best. I'm still not the best, but I did that because I wanted women to have a beautiful experience, and I wanted to be in close proximity with women so I could speak life into them, because, like I said, I was missing that myself, and I needed that myself. So I became a makeup artist, but the problem was is that, makeup schools were spitting out artists at a dime a dozen, and they were, 16 to 20, and lots of them, still lived at home with their parents, and or were married and were just doing it for a supplementary income or a hobby. But I was a single mum of four, and it was my entire income. I needed to make, it was my bread and butter. I needed to make ends meet with my income. So I couldn't compete out there in the real world with women who, didn't need the money like I did. And, they had maybe, or definitely, more access to clients because they didn't have, 4 children in tow. I had 4 children, so I had to work my whole life around those 4 children. If one of them got sick, then you can bet your bottom dollar all of them got sick, one after the other, over a period of weeks. And if I had have had just a normal day-to-day job, I would have been fired a million times over, because there's no way I could have kept up with, all of the childhood illnesses that we had while my kids were growing up. And so I already had a page that I'd created, a Facebook page that I'd created for my original makeup business, which was called Amazing Face. And I had worked really, really, really hard to get, there were about 3,000 people in that page after many, many, many years. And I would do so many competitions, and I would, I would run specials, and I would do all sorts of things to try and secure makeup jobs. But I was competing with these young girls who were charging like $30 a makeup, and probably only charging that so that they could buy more makeup. Whereas, like I said, mine was my bread and butter. So it was a hard, it was very competitive, and the girls' who, makeup was very good. So it wasn't like they were doing useless makeup, they were doing amazing makeup. So I just realized that I had to actually try and differentiate myself from others in the makeup artistry industry. And so I thought, well, I'd like to work with women who are like me, who are in the 30 plus age group, and their skin isn't perfect anymore, and things are saggy, and they have bags and circles and lines and all the things. And I wanted to work with women who were more like me. And so I opened a Facebook group, and with the intention of target marketing women in that age group with those issues like mine. And so the group went wild. Actually, in the first week, I had 3,000 people in the group. And then in the second week, I think it was 9,000. And then it just kind of grew from there. And then it turned into something completely different, and it made a life of all of its own. And I had to change things up because I knew that I couldn't really continue just talking about makeup in the group when it was about so many other things. And, eventually it was just a support community. When I say just, it was an amazing support community for women in the 30 plus age group. I say 30 plus, because it sounds a little bit more polite than saying 30 to the grave, right? But yeah, so I started treating it like a support community instead. And really, that's what it's been ever since. It took many years to develop the culture of the group, which is, as you know, absolutely zero tolerance for bullying. So we literally just eliminate and delete and block people instantly if they bully each other in this group, because we just figured that, well, I just figured that if you're a bully online, then you're a bully. If you say bullying things, then you're a bully. If you can't manage yourself online, you can't manage yourself. So why give somebody a second chance when they've already shown us who they are? And so it also was to protect our other ladies who really genuinely need the help. We didn't need another Facebook community like those local pages where you ask a sincere and vulnerable question and then you get completely abused with everybody's mockery. So we didn't want the group to be like that, and spent a lot of, blood, sweat, and tears cultivating an ethos in the group where people would feel safe. So that's why, we're really careful with the people that we join in the group. We check profiles, we make sure that people understand the guidelines, and if they don't and they go outside of them, then they just get the boot. So um, that's how the group came to be, and it's still a beautiful support community for women over 30 plus, and that's pretty much the whole story came from my personal life of trauma and abuse, and um, that's pretty much the story. And so what I want to do with this podcasting, so this is my very first go of podcasting, so excuse the um I don't even know I don't yeah trying to put a podcast together. I've done about 15 bloomin' tries just to put this one together, so that's what it feels like right now, fresh and new and hard, but like I do hard things, that's my life. And so what I want to do with this podcast into the future is I want to tell you a little bit about my story and where I came from, first of all, because I think that it's important that you understand, um, you know, the reason why it's so important for this to be a safe space for women, and why, to me, it's important that it doesn't ever become, like we don't need 100,000 people in this group, because we don't want necessarily high numbers. What we want is we want high value people. We want people who will be of value to each other, because they can help each other through things. There's so many women in this group and so many stories. We've all got stories to share, and from tragedy to triumph. And I really want to start having conversations with some other women in here in the group who can talk to us about what they went through and how they got through it and how they got to the other side of it. Because when you share your stories, there's so much power. There's so much power in sharing, the way out for other women. And it, creates a shortcut for women so they don't have to go the long way through their healing. I certainly wish that back when I was, stuck in my horrible abusive relationship, that I would have had somebody to help me through as well. So I'm going to leave it there for this first podcast, and subscribe so that we can all talk and share stories, because I think they're really powerful. Okay, over and out.